Hello, my health freedom loving friends. Miste Karlfeldt here with Health Freedom Idaho, and I'm here with Dr. Karlfeldt, my handsome hubby, and we're here to talk to you today about House Bill 152, which is naturopathic licensing. The reason this is so near and dear to my heart is it's actually the reason I came into politics. I was never political. It was not my thing. I felt like my legislators had it under control. I voted and they represented me, right? Well, I found out that wasn't necessarily the case. There's all kinds of special interests that they are dealing with all the time and lobbyists all the time. And that became clear to me when House Bill 181 came into being in 2015. And leading up to that, I had just I was in extreme pain. I have an autoimmune disease, but I just woke up one day in all this nerve pain, and I didn't know what that was from. It took me months of research, going to Salt Lake, going to the Mayo Clinic, trying to find what had taken over my body and was causing me so much pain. And the Mayo Clinic, they didn't really have answers. They really didn't want me to get distracted by the cause. That's a quote. Don't get distracted by the cause. Let's just manage the symptoms. And how they wanted to manage the symptoms was with 3 years of chemotherapy. And at that time I was pretty frail and pretty unhealthy, and I really didn't think I was going to be able to manage 3 years of chemotherapy along with being a single mom of 4 and running a business. So I had to find an alternative. And what I found in my own backyard was the Karlfeldt Center, and he's been healing me ever since. Detoxing, nourishing, healing my body, actually getting to the root cause, and I became obviously a huge fan. And so then in 2015, when House Bill 181 came about, I understood from Dr. Karlfeldt that it was going to greatly hinder his ability to have his practice, grow his practice, have a successful practice. And I was like, we can't have this. I have to have access to this traditional naturopathy. And having been raised in Western medicine, I didn't even know something like this existed. So once I found out and it was healing me, I had to do everything I could to protect it. So I went down to the Capitol, I spoke to the legislators, I explained my story, how it was healing me, and why we couldn't have licensure for one group of naturopaths and then essentially create a monopoly, putting another group of naturopaths, to traditionally educated naturopaths, out of business. I don't want that for myself, and I don't want that for our future generations. Our children have to have access to this beautiful modality.
And it's so important. I mean, I've been in naturopathic profession. I've more than 30 years of clinical experience, and this is something that I truly love and I really want to protect. And yes, it impacts me. It's not just about what's impacting me. It's also what's impacting the profession as a whole. It is something where people all over the world bring information and knowledge and traditions that are thousands and thousands of years old that are coming together to create this holistic, integrative form of medicine. And I want to make sure that it exists and it stays diverse. Mm-hmm. So the way that these bills are written, it creates a monopoly so that only a very select group that are educated from very specific schools and are taking a very specific exam, they are the only ones that are eligible for licensing.
Meaning educated in America and educated in Canada.
Yes.
And only if you attend those colleges can you sit for the test that would produce, then you'd be able to get a license. So, and those schools haven't been around for very long.
They haven't. They kind of fell in and out of whether they were able to call themselves recognized as a educational institution, and I think they were able to kind of back in the early 2000s, they fell into favor again, as an educational institution. So I'm not saying that the schools are bad. The schools, I think they're great schools. The issue is that you cannot centralize all this diverse and rich information and allowing just a small group of people being the ones that drive what naturopathy is going to be in the future. You're going to lose all this tradition. And here we're then using government and legislation to promote then one private organization to become the ones that are then going to set the course for naturopathy in the future.
Right.
So, you're thinking in this bill, I mean, I've been seeing this, I've been dealing with this bill pretty much for the last 15 years. And it's come again and again and again. And it's been shut down again and again and again. And it needs to be shut down again and again and again, because it's a bad bill. It really destroys my profession. And in the bill, there's a little change where it says, well, it won't, if you're a traditional naturopath, you're still allowed to call yourself a naturopath or naturopathic doctor. Wonderful, but what happens if you have one group that is licensed and the other one is not? The licensed group then probably will be able to accept insurance and the other one will not, which means that who are you going to go to? How are the ones that are not having a license nor being able to accept insurance be able to compete? They really won't. So it in essence, I wouldn't say indirectly, but as a second step, people like me will dwindle away, and people that are licensed, then they're coming from these very specific schools, they are the ones that then will be able to flourish and grow.
Now, I was in that spot, and I needed to use my insurance, and it's extremely expensive, right? And I probably would have used my insurance and gone to one of those other, the medical naturopathic folks, and I would have missed out on knowing that Michael existed. And I would imagine most people will do that very same thing. They'll go where they can use their insurance. That's how it effectively puts traditional naturopaths out of business.
Very discriminatory to create that monopoly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you effectively do away with all those years of rich history of naturopathy. And that's what I find so beautiful about naturopathy is it's been around for so long, and there's so much rich tradition, as he said, but there's also new developments all the time. One of the reasons that Idaho is so great for naturopathy is because there isn't licensure. After marrying Michael and going around to the different classes that you go to and the weekend educational things and meeting all these other naturopaths, they can't do what we can do in Idaho because of the licensure. Once there's licensure, they can start dictating what you can and can't do. Not only through rules and laws, but also through insurance. Insurance starts dictating what you can and can't do because they pay a certain amount for this or they won't cover that. And pretty soon you have, what's that term I hate so badly?
Oh, standard of care.
Standard of care.
Yeah, it's a swear word. And that is truly the issue. I mean, you're seeing that in the medical profession, where a medical doctor is not allowed to treat the patient in the best way that he thinks the patient should be treated, because it is not standard of care or the insurance does not guide it. So, which means that if you create an umbrella of regulations or oversight of the government, then they are going then to dictate your care. So, and naturopathy is a very safe profession. There's really, we're here to heal, we're here to prevent, and it doesn't deal with chemical drugs. If you want to be a medical doctor and you want to prescribe drugs, then go to medical school. But as a naturopath, that is not what you do. You use natural substances like herbs, vitamins, minerals, and restorative therapies to heal. So if you then create a regulating body telling you what you can or cannot do, you're going to lose the history. So you're creating a monopoly, and then you're creating an umbrella that tells that you are only allowed to practice in this fashion. And you're putting individuals that really have no understanding what naturopathy is over and above that, and saying that this is how it should be done. It's not going to work.
Yeah, so let me read that here in the bill. The Naturopathic Licensure Board shall consist of 5 members, okay? So 3 will be those that are licensed under the chapter, and then 1 will be a, where does that say? A physician.
Yes.
A licensed physician. So a medical doctor is going to be on the board with the naturopathic doctors. Okay, and then it also calls for a public member. That would make up the 5 on the board. Then, who would oversee that naturopathic licensing board? The Board of Medicine. So how can the Board of Medicine oversee something that they don't understand? And I can speak to this as a patient. They do not have the same tools. That would be like electricians overseeing plumbers. They don't have the same tools. They don't reach for the same tool for the same issue. I have an autoimmune disease. The Mayo Clinic wanted to use chemotherapy. I came here and we used vitamin C and glutathione IVs and hyperbaric chamber. Completely different tools, things that medical doctors do not study because that's not in their toolbox.
Exactly.
So how can that Board of Medicine be overseeing something that they don't have education on? That is a huge concern to me because I don't want naturopathic doctors to look like medical doctors. We already have medical doctors. Plenty.
Yeah.
What we don't have plenty of is traditional naturopaths. They need the patients to protect them. That's why I created Health Freedom Idaho, one of the reasons. Because we need to rally around our traditional naturopaths, our holistic healers, whether it's chiropractor, acupuncture.
Yeah, all the different healing, massage therapists, Reiki, energy healers, homeopaths. Yeah.
That's the word I'm thinking of, the homeopaths too. That's our job as the citizens to come around. It's got to be exhausting for practitioners to have to defend their right to practice year after year after year with this bill. And defend their right to exist. Defend their right to exist equally with other naturopaths. If we create a monopoly with the naturopaths that have been educated in America or Canada, and we lose traditional naturopathy, what stands between us and mandatory vaccination? Bastyr University, which is one of those universities we're talking about in America, not only do they require their students be vaccinated when they attend the naturopathic college, they also fully endorse the CDC vaccine schedule.
So, as a holistic doctor, we do not want to inject people with chemicals and metals. We just don't believe in that. And the problem is that if you then centralize naturopathy under one private organization, and they are overseen by government, obviously they are going to start to push vaccines, which they already are. That is just one example of how then naturopathy is having to lose its identity in order to be able to be accepted by the medical community. And they're doing that so that they can gain these licensures. But by gaining these licensures, we lose a profession. And I don't want to lose a profession. I don't want to have monopoly in regards to the naturopathic medicine. I don't want to have governmental oversight because the government doesn't really know what naturopathy is. It's a safe profession.
People saying all these other states have naturopathic licensure.
Yeah.
And it's working for them. And Idaho needs to do it too.
It's working great for the select people that already have their educated out of these schools. So it's working fantastic for them. People, the traditional naturopaths, they just dwindle away. They disappear. And they fight for existence. So I don't want to see that here in Idaho as well. I believe Idaho is we're a traditional state, and we believe in freedom.
Free enterprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Let the market work.
Yeah.
Let the market dictate who is the better naturopath and is healing you, not government oversight through licensure.
and then having government then bestow extra power onto one select group, and then saying, now go out and compete.
Right.
You can't.
No.
It's impossible.
You can't. And it hasn't worked in other states. Like Dr. Karlfeldt is explaining, it's worked for those that it's meant to benefit. It hasn't worked for traditional naturopaths. They end up closing up shop.
Yeah, and I have several friends that are in that boat. And there are actually a number of them that have moved back here to Idaho because they were not able to compete in other states like Washington, like California. So it's really important that we protect the profession and we do not allow this type of a bill to move forward.
I'm gonna get on my soapbox for just 1 minute and get on my soapbox. My soapbox is this: we already have access to this. We have access to all kinds of healing modalities in Idaho because there is not licensure. When you get licensure, you're basically saying to the government, here's all my freedoms that I already have that I'm really enjoying. I'm gonna give it to you, the government. They're gonna take it, they're gonna dice it up, chop it up, put it in little boxes, and you'll have a lot less freedom than you had before, and then they're gonna distribute it back to you in small portions. And you can't get that whole freedom back ever again because you've already told the government that they had the right to give it back to you, what you already had. We can't allow this any longer to take place in our state. We have our natural rights. We need to stand on them. We don't need the government to look it over, decide which ones we can have, and then give them back to us. We don't need it. Look how great it's going right now in Idaho for naturopathy. It's beautiful. Nobody's getting hurt. People are getting well. Let's keep doing what we're doing. We have all the freedoms that we can have naturally. We don't need the government to tell us which ones we can or cannot have.